legend himself.
And who needs no introduction whatsoever.
The man who even went toe-to-toe with Chuck Norris.
To be right here, my hero, Frank Shamrock.
The very top of the fighting world. But that success came at a high price.
I ended up fighting Boss Rutan.
You know Boss Rutan? He's such a savage.
You once knocked out a Rottweiler.
Yes.
Wow.
It's really kind of f***ed up.
I just remember his words.
I'll kill you. Do it now if you like.
He's choking me and he's saying this stuff. And so I started thinking to myself and really started to hyperventilate and really started to get freaked out. And then he just blasted me. I mean, it was horrible. I thought I was going to die. I was just deathly afraid.
But this is where my fear comes from.
My stepdad just started bending my arm, tore my knees out, and you're just crying because you're in so much pain. And it just made me terribly scared and afraid. So he
Locked me in the closet and left me there for hours.
Laying in that closet, I was like, that's what I'm going to become. I'm going to become a champion, you know, and help people like myself, because this is terrible.
The anger and the pain in me, I took it out.
fighting Boss Rutan.
What were you thinking before that fight?
My stepdad Joe had me live in the backyard for a couple weeks. And it was the first time where I really was hammered by the situation. I had all my belongings there because it was like he wanted me to leave. He made me take everything out of my room and all my toys. And I just remember sitting there under a tarp, under the frickin' clothesline, and just, you know, watching my Star Wars stuff get rained on, all my toys. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm living in the backyard. And that was, you know, that's what happened. That's what he would do. And it was just frightening and cold and damp and, you know, dark. I was kind of laying there, you know, and so I could smell the gasoline. It was right next to me on the mower. And I thought, wow, it smells really funny. And so I just started sniffing it. It wasn't really like any conscious thing in the beginning, but it would just knock me out and it would just wipe me out. And I would just have these crazy hallucinations and I would fall asleep. And I would do that when I lived in the tool shed because it was so hard. And then I would go to school in the daytime and I'd be all emotionally up because nobody knew what was happening to me. And I didn't know what to do. I was like,
Well, Joe had a myriad of punishments. The scariest one for me was, you know, getting locked in the closet.
That's when my brain started turning on to what was going on in my social environment. I was about 7 and a half, 8.
When you were in the closet and you would get out, I think it was your stepdad would watch boxing.
Yeah, we didn't have a TV in our house. So TV was only in the parents' room and it was only on a special night. And so the only TV I saw as a kid was boxing. I would massage his feet and I would watch boxing. It was the only experience I had outside of books and outside of school. So that was that was the thing. That was, you know, the champion had the belt and they gave the speech and everyone, like, there was that guy was the guy I wanted to be when I was in that closet, you know, as a kid. And it just became, you know, it became my dream. That was my dream. That's what I dreamt about when I was in there and I was, you know, sad and I was just like crushed. And I was like, it's okay because someday I'm going to be that guy.
And it wasn't until I threw rocks at the train and got arrested and sent to juvenile hall and was sitting in juvenile hall and talking to all these bad kids that I heard all the rumors about. And I'm telling them what's going on. And they were just like, what are you talking about? And like, that's insane. And I was just blown away. In fact, I started pulling back. I was like, well, I can't tell them all this stuff because they were just shocked. And I remember going back to my room and just sitting there going, wow, like maybe it's not, you know, me. And that's when like I was like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out.
And then when I went and saw my counselor at juvenile hall, you know, she was very poignant and said, listen, if you keep doing this, they'll take you from your home.
I was like, that's how I get out. That's how I do it. And so I was like, wow, I figured it out. But it basically ended when I was robbing that Taco Bell. I know that sometimes they leave the window door open for the serving window, and I get there and it's totally open. So I literally just walk in. The door to the safe is open. The door to the office is open. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. There's a huge bag of cash. I just stuffed it under my thing. I'm only in there maybe, 7 or 8 minutes. But as soon as I come out, I can see cars come in and cops come in. I ran around the back, and behind it, there's a creek. It was frozen because it's the middle of winter. And I jumped into that creek to get away from the cops. And as soon as I hit, I could feel the money come out. And then I could also feel that I was stuck under ice, because when I came back up, the ice was there because I went in at an angle. And so I had to kind of crawl in and push through the ice. And then I just started running. And I ran and ran and ran. I still remember just the sound of my breath, because everything else had gotten super quiet. And I could just hear myself breathing. It was really like labored breathing. My mind was really just about, I needed to get somewhere. I was so cold and it was so painful. The cold was so painful. And then all of a sudden, it just got the warmest warm you've ever felt. And I was suddenly at peace, and I was like, wow, this feels amazing. I felt euphoric and wonderful. And I laid down on the tracks, and I was like, I'm just gonna take this tiny little nap, and I'll pop right back up, keep running. And I laid down, and things started to kind of warm up, and then all of a sudden, I have hypothermia, because I'm a nerd and I read everything. And I read, this is what happens when you have hypothermia.
And I laid there, and I was like, I'm gonna die.
Wow.
And then I got up, and I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm not gonna die. So I know where that moment is.
And so I popped up, and I just kept running and running, and I finally got to my friend's house. And then we got busted. And I was sent to this crisis center. That's when I met Bob Shamrock, and it was the same thing. I was sitting in juvenile hall, and another guy came to interview me, and this guy was just totally different. He was just no nonsense. I mean, he looked crazy, he had gold everywhere, and he looked like a rock star or something. And he just sat down, and I went to give him my spiel, and he just goes, nope. Nope. Because we don't do bullshit.
And it was the first time I'd met a father figure who stood up and was like, wait a minute, this is how young men act. And it was the first time I got a lesson in what a father does. I never had a father, so I never understood the value of that leadership, the value of the lead warrior. I never knew. And he told me, listen, what you're doing is wrong. The way you're acting is wrong. And he set down a baseline of rules of how normal people should act.
And then he's like, if you come here, that's what'll happen. From the moment he picked me up, I was just like his son. And there was 20 boys, but he ran a big family in the Shamrock Boys Ranch. I loved him. I instantly fell in love with him.
And he was my one person in this world that cared about me and my success. And he's a man I have no relation to, who just showed up one day because I needed him. And he said, you could be a fighter. You could be a warrior. There's a new sport coming on. Your brother's doing it. There's all this opportunity right now. And that dream I had when I was a little boy, of being a champion, of being recognized, that thing that I always wanted fell right into my lap. The fact that he cared about me and the fact that there was a place for me allowed me to show up.
I was in college, and my dad called me. He said, you got to meet this kid. He's a good kid. He's got some problems, but man, I think if you can hook up with him and maybe, mentor him a little bit, you guys are kind of the same.
This is my brother's new fighting school. And my dad is basically positioning it like it's a martial arts learning academy. So he's kind of pepping me up the day before.
When he dropped me off, he told me two things. He said, don't ever give up, and don't show him you're afraid.
Usually I did the initiations, and I beat the crap out of people. I literally beat the snot out of them. And I was going to have the other guys do it because I just didn't know if I could do it because I knew how much my father cared for him. But I knew that I had to be the one because he had to respect me. And so I did it.
The first minute, I thought, oh, I'm actually kind of competitive. And then he just blasted me. And then I was like, holy heck, because no one had ever knocked me down in a fight, ever. And then he just jumped on me and just started twisting me and bending my arm, tore my knees out. He's put me in all these holes and just tearing them because he's expecting me to give up. But But I don't know you can give up because no one's explained that to me. That's maybe 7 or 8 minutes in, and it was 20 minutes. I mean, it was horrible. I thought I was going to die. Honestly thought that I was going to die in that tragedy. They helped carry me in the car, and then I lived in top of Ken's 2-story house. So they carried me upstairs, but then I couldn't get down the next day because I was so sore, my knees were torn out. So I spent a week upstairs, and then I scooted down, and then after about a week and a half, I was, hobbling pretty good. 2 weeks, I was back in the gym.
Dad sat me down, he had this big pep talk with me, and he says, listen, son, you built up this great body, and you built up your mind, and you built up your spirit. It's like you're ready to go try something. You're ready to apply yourself.
I got the invitation to go to Japan and to finish my training in Japan and then to enter the King of Pancrase tournament. I ended up fighting Bas Rutten as my very first match. I didn't know who he was, to be honest with you. But every time I told somebody who I was fighting, they would all look down. They would like, combate, Shamrock-san, combate. And I'd be like, oh, Bas Rutten. They'd look down. I'm like, why are they looking down?
You know Bas Rutten, he's such a savage.
You once knocked out a Rottweiler.
Yes. Bas Rutten, the one and only.
He's almost apologizing to the guy for hitting Bas Rutten's game plan in this fight.
People who have never seen Bas Rutten fight, just watch this.
I'm sorry. Bang, bang, bang. No, I'm not.
I was just deathly afraid. The fight was 10 minutes. It went by for me in what seemed like a minute. And I just remember tiny segments. One where he has my head and he's choking me. I just remember his words.
That voice started saying, you can't do this. You're going to lose. Everything you worked for is going to be gone in just a few minutes. And so I started thinking to myself and really started to hyperventilate and really started to get freaked out because this was my entire dream in my life. Everything in my life revolved around this moment, and I was about to lose it. I was crushed inside. My spirit was down here, and his was just way up here. His energy was this big. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is it. I'm going to lose.
Laying in that closet, I was like, that's what I'm going to become. I'm going to become a champion. And I'm going to use that voice and that power to do stuff, and help people like myself, because this is terrible. And so I always envisioned that I was going to become that person.
So there was only one answer. Move forward. That's what you do when you're a warrior.
I remember cross-facing him really hard, and then I remember us both having heel hooks on each other and thinking, I'm going to break his leg and he's going to break mine. And then I remember the bell ring. Looked over my corner and Ken was like, yes. And they announced that I'd won and I was just blown away. The whole thing was just so overwhelming and so, so much. I definitely walked out of that ring a different person.
If you're not creating a mental picture of the life and future you want, then you're wasting your brain power on a daily. For me, it's every single night when I go to bed. What's my future? I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm visualizing my future. And to me, it's about living like a warrior. I want to provide for my family, for my community. I want to be a person of strength when they come to me. I can live that if I'm living this warrior's code. And that is living with honor, living with discipline, living with respect. I think we're all warriors. And you need the proper tools. You can train your mind, your body, and your spirit. And be ready for those moments. Be ready for those moments when your commitment will be ultimately tested. And a warrior never gives up. And a warrior always finds a way to win.